Greetings, Internet, and welcome to Aaron Plays, and I hope you're doing fantastically well. I'm not going to call this an episode. This is going to be me having a chat about, well, how I got into wargaming, um, or gaming in general, and the progress of the corruption that led to where I am today. I don't know how many parts this is going to be. This is going to be we can call it part one. I say it's not an episode, it's part one. And I will continue if there's any interest. So let's go to the other screen and I can show some images and such forth. Remember to hit the like if you enjoy the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already and you like what I do. And remember, any comments will be much appreciated and be responded to. So here I am on a blank canvas. Imagine 5 years old, opening Christmas presents, getting little toys, um, plastic toys, things you could play with your fingers. And then in one of them was this. Now, this is not the exact cover that I actually got. I couldn't find an exact replica of what I got. It had a similar cover, basic pictures. It was a children's book of the history of the world. And it was covered in, well, full of color plates from different ancient civilizations, right the way through. So I think the latest it sort of did was about World War II. So it's from like 3000 BC right up to World War II. And just the color pictures just drew me straight in. My reading was good at 5. I was actually, I couldn't read every word, but I had a decent vocabulary thanks to my mum and dad and school. And this was a present from my parents. And instantly I was like, I didn't really play with the toys. I sort of remember like, yeah, dabbling, but this. I mean, it also got me into the love of reading. I'd been reading sort of like the basic children books at the time, but this got me into the love of reading itself, as well the fascination for history. A couple of Christmases later, got a chess set. My dad had been playing with me drafts, or as you Americans call them, checkers, or is it the other way around? I'm not sure. I think we call them drafts over here. And then he got me into playing chess about 6, 7-ish. And I played it with him quite avidly until I started beating him regularly, and then it seemed to wane at that point. I went to in junior schools, chess clubs and such forth. Yeah, I was that nerdy little kid. I'd be sitting in the corner reading a book. I'll be sitting, going at lunchtimes to the chess club playing chess. So yeah, that was me. Around about 8-ish, maybe younger, I was given, can't remember if it was Christmas, can't remember if it was birthday, it could have been just a random purchase. But yeah, I got some Airpics, the bigger scale figures. I think they're 1/32 or 1/36. And yeah, I got British and German. I mean, these aren't my actual pictures. In fact, most of the pictures you're going to see in this video are being cobbled from somewhere. But I had the British and the Germans. And these are the British paratroopers. I had the commandos, and I had the Africa Corps and such forth. And I didn't do what a lot of kids did, which was throw marbles at them to knock them over and such forth. I started like, well, rolling the dice. I didn't worry about things like line of sight, range, building. I used Lego as my terrain. I had tons of Lego, and I built buildings and walls and such forth. I remember piling a bunch of green bricks, or greenish, might have been brown bricks to be woods and so on. But yeah, the Airfix figures, especially to say the 1/32 or 1/36, as they say, so the slightly bigger ones, got me playing. And I played in the garden. I used natural, grass and twigs as trees and such forth. And I was playing it with a young lad called Damien. my best friend at the time, and we had a small area of grass, and that was our battlefield. And we used dice, one, two, three, or something to hit, four, five, six, miss, or something like that. I can't remember the rule, but we had a rules of sorts. Time progressed. I suppose around about 10-ish, I was gifted with this. And I was gifted with this with also French and British. Yeah, these are the box. I mean, just look at the art. I mean, it's just got to be inspirational for a young kid. And I was there, French infantry, British cavalry, there was artillery and such forth. I don't remember how much I got given at that time. I know I got the Waterloo farmhouse and some, might have been all been in one set. British infantry, French infantry, one of each sort of thing in those basic boxes. And it was like, and these were the smaller, the 172nd, 176, and it says whatever HOO scale is inside. And by this time I'd moved, I had a new friend who I was playing these with. I was a guy who lived next door, a guy called Tony Bennett. And there was another guy, I honestly can't remember his name, who was across the street. And we each had our sets of these. And again, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, hit 4, 5, 6, etc. And then, it was the British and the French. So there was no Austrians at that time or Prussians or anything like that. I think the Prussians came out later. And I also got some of the World War II figures as well to go with it. And then I discovered this. This was in the school library. I was in senior school by this time, probably, 11 years old. This is about 1976, showing my age. And yeah, this was in the school library. And I sat down, looked at it, and started reading it. And then obviously took it out, brought it back to me mates. I said, look, there's actual rules for this kind of stuff. And we use a school photocopier to make copies of it. And we each had a copy. And then we decided, right, well, okay. I obviously can't remember the details of the rules. I know I found this on was it eBay? Someone's selling it on there. Look at the time, £1.20 for a book. It was a hardback. They call it magazine guide, but it was a hardback book. And look at this. Had rules for dead ground, line of sight. I mean, I'm looking at this and I think, cool, that was actually not bad. Army organization. And for someone around, I said, it was about 11. This was fantastic. And then look at these. Okay. We were like, oh, and we were at the time, we had little blocks. Yes, I can't remember, say 10 infantry, 12 infantry representing a regiment, battalion, whatever, and moving them individually along the board, which took a long time. The board we were using was called the floor. The buildings we were using was still Lego, but we were playing. And I had the French army, Tony had the British, and the guy across the street, John something or other, he had the Austrian. There was no Austrian figures. So how did we betray that? He painted all of his Austrians white. I painted all of my French blue. And yes, Tony painted all of his British red. And we mounted them using, I think Blue Tack had just come out with some kind of adhesive onto these, these index cards you get, the 5-inch by 3-inch. And we stuck them all that, and that allowed us to move the units quite quickly. And we were playing. And it was fun, what I remember. So yeah, that book caused a lot of trouble because it was from there I was started to get in. This is serious stuff. So yeah, I did this for about a year, probably a little bit more. I was in the school library again. School library had quite I don't want to say a lot, but had a few books on wargaming, and there was a book on Napoleonic Wargaming, and a young lad in the school as well saw me reading this, and he sat down and we just started talking about gaming, and he said, "Why don't you come over? I've got a board game that you might be interested in." Now, I've done a video of me replaying this on my channel, and um, from a nostalgia point of view, because this was the first actual war board game that I ever played. Guy was called Ian Granger. He invited me over to his place, and we played a scenario. Can't remember which one. I just know I got my ass whooped. Um, I then said, "Well, can I borrow this and we'll play again next week?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." I went home and I read the rules. I looked at it and practiced it and played it solo. Again, a scenario. Don't know which one. But the following week, I went back to his place and we played again. And yes, I won. I can't remember how much I won, but I know the first game I had my ass whooped. Second game, I won. And that started my love affair. And he gave me a I I refuse to call it a catalogue because it wasn't really. It was more like a newspaper. It was like four sheets of paper stuck together with a staple, which had so is it a fanzine, a newsletter, or whatever from a shop that was in Liverpool. I was living in a town called Redcar at the time, so and it was a mail order delivery. It was one of those wait 28 days for your delivery sort of thing. So I took that home to decide, well, I really loved that. I liked the miniatures. I was still doing that, but this was had maps. It had the detail. It was historically, to me, accurate. This was fantastic. I mean, it had all the history. Look at me. It even has the time on the starting on the 7th of December. I was like, whoa, this is going to be it. So I looked through this fanzine magazine for a shop, and it had different game companies. You had Games Designers Workshop, you had SPI, you had Avalon Hill, maybe even the Quinto, but it had different. It had like a breakdown of the games they had and what was inside each game. How many counters, how many map boards, etc. No pictures. It was just text. There was a few role-playing games on there. I think about this time, we're talking 77 here, maybe the start of 78. And there was Traveller and Dungeons and Dragons. Never heard of them. But I was fascinated by the war games. This was like, whoa, this is what I want to do. And there was, I'm not saying I'm a skinflint or anything like that or whatever, but they had the prices, and I was going through it, and there was one there that I went, go, well, so it had 4 maps, over 1,000 counters. I was like, wow, because the other ones, like like Battle of the Bulge by Avalon Hill, had 200 counters and 1 map. I was like, okay. It said mounted. I thought, all right, okay. Well, I realized that this one here had on a map sheet, but they were all saying 4 map sheets, 1,000 plus counters, charts and tables and such forth. I was like, for £9.99 was like Battle of the Bulge, and I think there was a few others there were like £8.50. But with 1 map sheet and 200 counters, so I thought I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to get as much as I can for my money, and that made me purchase for my first board war game that I purchased was Ragnak Austin, Russian front. And I was like, wow, look at that. I mean, I didn't see the cover. There was no pictures or anything like that. This is pre-internet, way pre-internet days. I just, the Ragnar Austin, loads of counters, loads of maps. And I thought, yeah, that's got to be, hasn't it? And when it came, again, this is a stock picture I found. I thought, this has got to be it. I opened it up. I'm 12, maybe 30, bordering on 13. And I was like, what have I done? I looked at it. I thought I had to, there's no way I had a table big enough to play it. I had to move my bed to the side put it on the floor, drag my 5 year younger than me brother, and say, right, we're going to learn how to play this. And he was like, oh, okay. Um, and punched it out and started reading the rules. I mean, for that time, I mean, it was a lot more rules than the previous one. But yeah, I was hooked. The German invasion of Russia, 1941, it went up to, I think, March 42. Um, it's been subsequently done by redone as Scorched Earth. No, it wasn't. Fire in the East. Um, and I never got the follow-on to this, which I think was called Unentschieden, because I just never got to it. I thought this was more than enough game for me at the time. Unentschieden had extra maps, and my room was stretched to capacity at that time, just having this on the map floor. So yeah, this was my first actual purchase, and I loved it. It was exactly what I expected and wanted. And that love lasted all over a summer. I played it solo. I dragged the guy from next door to play. So I was playing with my brother. We just kept on playing and playing and playing it. And all I remember is it was just, I was then reading books on the Eastern Front. It got me, I still have my love of history and reading. I was still that nerdy kid in the school reading books, going to the library. As you see, the library got me in a lot of trouble. But this was it. This was like, wow, Eastern Front and so on. And I thought, well, I still like Napoleonics. So going back to that fanzine, there was one on Napoleonics, which again had loads of maps, and it was done by the same company. So I thought, well, I like what they've done on that. Let's get this one. Okay. And that was my second game purchase. I didn't go for the small, did I? No, this was, again, 4 map sheets, thousands of count. Well, I won't say thousands, but at least 1,000 counters. This is obviously a picture from someone else's game. It was the first La Bataille game that I had. Well, it was only the second game I ever owned. And I didn't realize at the time this was originally done by a company called Marshall Enterprises, was then redone by Game Designers Workshop. And yeah, I played again this right the way through, all the way up to, and I'm going to jump ahead a little here. When I went to sixth form college, we did various groups of people were asked to, for charity, do something sponsored, 24-hour sponsored, people doing 24-hour sponsored dancing, some played golf, whatever. Me and a group of lads in the sixth form, we did a 24-hour sponsored playing of La Bataille de Moscow. So that would be when I was 16. So that'd be 1982. Yeah, it was in sixth form, and we played it to completion in that 24 hours. We did rush it a little bit in places, but we did finish it. It worked, and it was a load of fun. And by the end of it, we were absolutely knackered. But again, I say this had by now supplemented or replaced my other Napoleon games, the miniatures and such forth, because the accuracy I could get on here, I could not replicate on the miniatures table. Miniatures just didn't do it for me by that time. I still had them, and I would get back into them, but at this point I was into these board games and such forth. So yeah, that's it in action. It's a lot simpler version. The rules by Game Designers Workshop were a lot smaller. I think they're about 15, 16 pages of a small rule book. And the Marshall Enterprises versions was a lot bigger. A lot bigger. But yeah, by playing that, I was talking at school. There was a group of lads at the school who were into these sort of things. And I then picked up Auslitz. Now that came out in about 1980, 81. So these were expensive. I mean, pocket money didn't go too far. But again, that magazine sending off post office coupons, postal orders. That's the word. Postal orders. 'Cause I didn't have a checkbook or anything like that. We didn't have shops that sold these sort of things, not like you guys in America. I mean, it might have been shops in London. Obviously, this shop was in Liverpool, so I assume they had a bricks and mortars thing, but we couldn't get hold of it. And again, I remember playing this. I mean, Borodino was played on the floor. This was played on the floor. Um, no way did we have tables, couldn't go to my mum and say, "Oh, can I have the kitchen table for the next, 2 weeks?" Um, she wouldn't have appreciated it. I managed to play some other smaller games, and there were other smaller games that I picked up. I can't remember what they were. I know there was an SPI West Wall quad. Um, there was, I think, Napoleon's Last Battles quad in there and in and amongst them. But these are the games that I do remember. I remember playing this. I know we went to a library and we borrowed the library table. We played some miniature World War II games, which I'll come to in a minute. But we also did this, or a scenario from this. Um, and even madder purchase, Bagrab. And again, that was getting on to about 82. Might have been 81, but and such forth. But yeah, that was definitely one of the ones that I wanted and got and play. I can't remember playing it to completion. Might have done. I don't remember. I do remember setting it up, just as I remember playing that one. Um, I didn't own this one. This was owned by someone called Spamuli. And there was another guy whose house we went round to. Um, There's about four of us playing, and again, it was spread all over the floor. Charlestown mum and dad were, quite happy to let him carry on. My mum and dad wouldn't let me have this spread over the floor for about 4 or 5 days during summer holidays playing it. And I can't remember the datings and timings of this as such, but I do remember playing it. And did we play it to completion? Nowhere near. Nowhere near did we play this completely. In fact, I remember redoing this back in the 90s, maybe the early 2000s with a guy, and who I'll be introducing in the next episode. But we decided to play it. He had a long enough table to set it up and so forth, and we played it for about 2 months, one night a week, uh, doing normally a turn or two, until we worked out there was 102 turns, and this was going to take us 2 years to play if we played every week, and that's when we packed it up. It was by that time it was dated quite considerably, but back then, we're talking early 80s. This was, absolutely stunning. The graphics, the concept, yeah, absolutely stunning. Then War and Peace. What's so nice about this one is this was the first game I bought that actually had just come out. So we're talking again about 1980. It was like, by this time I was getting that fanzine from the shop or whatever it was. In every game I purchased, there was on it, and this had the word new on it. And it was like, let's get a game that nobody else has got. And yeah, got to open the box. Again, same waiting 28 days for delivery. Cool, blimey. Next day delivery now, we just and didn't know what it was like back then. Whew, just sitting there waiting for the postman. And yeah, it usually came before the 28 days, but it was definitely will it come, will it not come, and so on. But yeah, it came. And I was so excited. And opened it up, and there were thousands of counters. And I took it down to the club I by this time joined, the Redkirk Literary Institute. Now, I joined that probably about in 79, and I was playing ostensibly miniatures games there. Is my next one going to be the miniatures picture? It is. I was starting to play miniatures again, using WRG's Wargame rules, and they had a set for Napoleonics, they had a set for Ancients, and they had a set for World War II. I think it was called Infantry and Armour, 1925 to 1950. And the people in the club were playing there, and that's where my Airfix figures came back out. And I made some rudimentary attempts at painting them. And I then started getting proper metal figures for this, and I had a Roman army, which yeah, sort of painted. It wasn't great, but it was mine. And I purchased some figures off another guy, which was a Greek army. So I had a Roman army and a Greek army, which I played these with, and these rules stayed with me for quite a while. Um, Until obviously sixth edition, then seventh edition, and then such forth came out. But these, the fifth, were my introductory to ancients miniatures. I did have the Airfix plastic Romans and ancient Britons, and had done things with them before these rules came out. I can't remember what rules I was using for them. And then probably there might have been another Airfix books in there, Airfix book in there, going back to right at the beginning. But this set of rules was like, well, this is like an official, they play competitions of this, using this. And I loved them. They were fantastic. Enough to get me the figures. But at that club were other things going on at the regular literature. They had World War II games, they had role-playing games, and that's where I sort of got introduced into Dungeons and Dragons. I'd seen it a little bit in the school, and Traveller, and we're talking again about 1980, 1981. I had dabbled in the 78 and such forth, but it was dabbling. I really started getting into the Dungeons and Dragons and Traveller in about 1980, 81. Can't remember the specific dates, but that was all down at the club. We also did things like there was an On Guard game going on, and I do vaguely remember playing something like Cosmic Encounters, or something similar. It's definitely a spacey game, but my main love it's still at this point was the board games such as the Highway to the Reich, the back. Yeah, I dabbled with Vactem Rhine. What was the other one I dabbled back with then? A lot of SPI games. I didn't really get into Avalon Hill at this point. I can't remember playing any Avalon Hill games until Squad Leader and Longest Day, which are going to be in the next episode. Whoops, spoilers. So yes, so that's I think I'm going to now mention my two encounters with the law that has been affected by miniatures. The first one is with regards to the Airfix figures, Airfix, Matchbox, and such forth. Just before I joined senior school, so this is before I had any official rules or anything like that, I was just collecting the figures. But pocket money only goes so far. And there was a shop in our local town called Four Boys that stocked these figures. Yes, I nicked a box. Bad boy. Can't remember what they were. I nicked a box and took them home and played with them and so forth. And I thought, well, that was easy. So I did it again. Second time wasn't so easy. I was caught. Caught shoplifting plastic war game figures. And yes, the police were brought in, and I was taken down to the police station. And I was absolutely cacking myself. Not proud of it. It happened, but I thought I'd relate it to you because it made me not want to do it again, I'll tell you. And my dad came down to the police station, and I thought I was going to be in for the high jump, and actually he didn't. He just sat me down, had a chat, and yeah, I'd say Mike kept me on the straight and narrow. Yeah, not quite. My second incident with the police regarding wargaming was coming back from the Literary Institute one night. I had a duffel bag, and I was using the bus. So I was waiting at the bus stop, and I had a duffel bag with two, the A4 boxes in there. One had a Roman army in it, and one had the Greek army I purchased. So two officers of the law came down. I was 15 at the time. It's a Saturday night. Wanted to get home on the bus. I was into my punk rock. As you know, I still like my punk rock music. I had the tatty t-shirt on, ripped sort of jeans and so on. And they came up. So I must have looked sus. Okay, because here I am, scruffy as hell. Can't remember if I had a dog collar or whatever, but these coppers called me over and said, "What's in the bag?" Because it's a big duffel bag. Now, you guys in America don't know what a duffel bag is. One of those sort of big, like you'd call it a sports bag now, but it was a little bit more. They didn't have a sports bag back then. It was plain. It was quite thick. It had a strong, something that people might carry things like tools in that they can go and break into. So they were like, what's in the bag? And I said, and this is where my rebellious punk thing came. And I said, none of your bloody business. I can't remember exactly the words said, but let's just say I was taken down to the police station. All I had to do was open the bag. But I was like, basically off. It's got nothing to do with you, bloody coppers. And then when at the police station, I wasn't arrested or charged. I was hindering the law, shall we say. Bad boy. They opened up the bag and they went, why don't you just show us? I said, I didn't think you had the right to. I was argumentative. I was young. Yeah, that was my second run with the law in regards to gaming. Yeah, I then just made my way home. I don't think even my parents were brought into it. I know for a fact I didn't tell my dad. To be fair, I was a little ashamed. I've been bloody stupid and wasting their time. But, there we go. So that's it, really. That's have I got anything else? I made notes. I've covered. Yeah, back to me. Yeah, I by this time, in 1982, I emigrated with my parents to South Africa, and that we'll call the South African years will be in the next. I'm not going to call it episode part 2. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me bring this back up to the full screen. If you enjoy that, please just, like the video, subscribe if you haven't done so already. It's just me reminiscing what I can remember. There was a lot of other things involved that I just can't remember. It was just so long. There was intermingled things. I know the miniatures in the club. We played quite a lot of World War II, and we're talking like 10-foot tables, 6-7 foot across and such forth, with multiple players playing. I remember playing the Wagram and the Austerlitz with multiple players, something you just can't get nowadays. That was maybe because of youth. Yeah, you've got a whole summer holiday or Easter holiday or whatever to fill. The love of history right from the start, just getting me into historical stuff and why, and I've still got that love of history today. So, but anyway, that's my beginnings. So the next episode I'll cover the South African years, which will be from like 1982 to 1989, late 89, and I might actually go a little bit into the return, but we'll see. Let me know. Add in your comments what you thought. Then your details. We all have our little way we got into it and how we progressed and such forth. All those people I've mentioned, I've lost contact with a long time ago. Probably, a lot of the time when I went to South Africa. But anyway, until then, play games, have fun. Bye, internet.